there, my name is Zoe Chowney. I'd like to thank Techno Day for inviting me to speak today about my experiences as a transgender entrepreneur and what businesses can do to better support the LGBTQ plus community. Professionally, I'm an accountant and a tech entrepreneur. I started my career with AIG. That was an international role, mainly traveling full-time in Latin America and the Caribbean. I returned to the UK in 1999. My God, I'm getting old. And I started, I founded a number of different internet ventures, obviously when the internet was still very, very young. Part of that, I co-founded a digital media agency, which I ended up selling to WPP and then completed a 4-year earn-out. I later became the European CEO of Kenshu, which is a major Israeli technology company backed by Sequoia Capital, Arts Alliance, and Bain Capital Ventures. After a few years, I left there to found another technology company acting in the asset finance and leasing industries. More recently, for the last few years, I've been running a research and development tax consultancy, and last month I've just launched a new business called Bacano, which provides groundbreaking research and development tax claims SaaS platform that offers by far the lowest fees in the industry for helping companies maximize their R&D tax claims. Regarding my gender dysphoria, I've battled with this since early childhood. Actually, from my earliest memory, which is actually from the age of 3, I remember thinking, something has gone horribly wrong here. This is not who I'm supposed to be. However, back in those days, the world was a very different place and much less accepting, and it was never talked about. So I just learned to be ashamed of who I was, very embarrassed. I hated this about myself, and just continued to live this secret double life all through my childhood and into adulthood. I kind of hoped that things would get better over time, that the gender dysphoria would just reduce over time. But unfortunately it doesn't. It just gets stronger and stronger as you get older. This sense of just living a lie, living dishonestly, and knowing that you're not the person that everybody sees. And you find it very hard longer term to really create connections with people and things around you. You just feel always a little bit distant because you know you're just portraying it's like you're acting. It's like you're just in a film and you're portraying what you think you want people to see rather than who you really are. In 2014, I ended up getting very sick through the stress of all of this, and I got hospitalized. The doctors and nurses in the hospital put me in some emergency ward for a few days, which was the most frightening thing of my life. They told me they thought I was dying. They thought I had cancer, because my body was sort of shutting down, but they did test after test, scan after scan, but they couldn't find it. And I knew what the real problem was. It was the stress of my gender dysphoria coming out physically. And in desperation, I then confessed my real issues to my doctor. And that's the first person I'd ever told in over 40 years about my big secret. It was absolutely terrifying. But I'm very lucky that my doctor was very supportive, and cut a long story short, I then got referred for specialist counselling and treatment at Charing Cross Gender Clinic. They ended up telling me I kind of had 2 options really. One was to stay in the closet, keep living as I was, which is doable, but they said, understand you will continue to get more and more depressed and clinically depressed, and you'll end up probably either taking your own life or your body will continue shutting down. But either way, they suggested that my lifespan would be significantly shorter, and probably 10 to 15 years, something like that. And when you're in your early 40s, that's really not what you want to be hearing. And they said the only other real option is to transition, which is going to be horrendously difficult. It's going to create a lot of upheaval and turmoil in my life. But they said in a few years' time, hopefully you should come out of this, and then you should be a better person as a result. So it was kind of from the frying pan to the fire, and caught between a rock and a hard place and all these other awful cliches. So I had no choice really but to transition. And having kept this a complete secret for my entire life, I then had to become the real me on the 31st of March 2017, which means actually in 23 days' time, I'm going to have my 4th birthday, which is going to be nice. But it was a massive upheaval in my personal life. It cost me my home, it cost me my wife, it cost me, didn't cost me my children, but it meant on the same day as becoming me, I was no longer able to live with my children. And I basically had to start again, living just a 10-minute walk down the road from everybody. And that was a big challenge. And the other side, in addition to your personal life, it's coming out to work colleagues and to business contacts. And it was terrifying and really depressing to go from being part of one of the most privileged demographics in the world, which is a white straight male, to one of the most marginalized and discriminated groups. I mean, literally overnight. It was a very, very bizarre experience. I can tell you that no transgender person will ever forget the terror and nervousness of meeting their work colleagues as their true selves for the first time. Many people assume that LGBT equality is no longer an issue, but unfortunately it's not true. Even in this country, in the UK, specifically, especially for the transgender community, some very recent UK data and reports have come out saying that this is purely for transgender people, that 41% were victims of a hate crime within the last 12 months. And then there's another bunch of statistics for the UK transgender population just within the workplace, that 1 in 8 have been physically attacked by colleagues or customers in the last year. 51% had to hide at work because they're afraid of the discrimination. Only 3% of equal opportunities policies within companies openly welcomes transgender people to actually apply for jobs. Only 2% of employers offer a transitioning at work policy to support staff intending to go through a gender transition. And I've spent a long time as a technology entrepreneur working in the IT sector, and the IT sector is actually one of the worst in the UK, where 45% of IT companies, when surveyed, said that they were unlikely to employ a transgender person. Which is pretty horrendous. And the final statistic I'm going to share with you is 62% of LGBT people that come out as their real selves at university go immediately back into the closet when they enter the workplace for the first time and take their first job. But looking purely at the transgender side of things, one of the main challenges that transgender people face, both socially and particularly within the workplace as well, is the fact that there is no hiding. Unlike being the LG or B part of LGBT, trans people don't have the luxury of choosing when and who to come out to. If you're a gay person, you choose who you let know that your sexual preference. Whereas when you're transgender, particularly in the early stages of your transition, it is try as you might to blend in as the best you can. It is unfortunately often pretty obvious that you are at the early stages of a transition, and that is terrifying. You're permanently visible. You're constantly having to wave the flag. You're constantly having to explain yourself and to talk about your story, and you're constantly vigilant because there's so much aggression and abuse towards transgender people still. And it's very, very tiring because you have to display this constant vigilance and fear for your safety all the time. There are also other specific workplace challenges for transgender people, such as it's dangerous to travel to many countries for fear of either being attacked or even being arrested. So when you have when you work for a company where you ordinarily do a lot of international travel, when you transition, your employer really needs to think about how to support you in that regard, and to hopefully only send you to countries that are tolerant and accepting. Meeting clients, colleagues, suppliers, all of those things are very, very scary. And basically you have the fear of not being accepted or being laughed at or ridiculed. And that happens an awful lot to many trans people, again, particularly in the early stages of their transition. I mean, most of us, all we really want to do is just be accepted and treated the same way as we were before. Many people may say that I was a bit of an idiot before I transitioned, so now I'm just an idiot in a dress. Unfortunately, this doesn't always happen though. When I transitioned, I was actually running two companies at the time. One of them was my leasing technology company. Although all of my staff were absolutely fine, and my clients and my non-exec directors, my business partner turned out to be less than accepting, shall we say, and he ended up refusing to ever see me in person after I transitioned. And he would look at me on Skype, but he would never meet me again in person. So I ended up having to leave that business, which was pretty outrageous. At the time, I was also running my research and development consultancy. I had about 35 clients at the time. So on the positive side, over a two-week period, I had to come out to my 35 clients, and for each one, say, you're now going to be getting emails from Zoe instead of who you were previously receiving them from, and explain my situation. That was utterly exhausting, but luckily, it was a very positive experience, and 100% of my clients were supportive and really enthusiastic to help me in this journey. I'm often asked by businesses what they can do more to support the LGBT community. Companies can make a huge difference by being visibly accepting. Accepting diversity is not just the right thing to do, but it's also good for business, with many studies finding that diverse workforces are more innovative, they are much faster at solving problems, they attract and retain better talent, they better represent the customers which they serve, and more larger customers are looking at the diversity of their potential suppliers. And ultimately, these companies are just more profitable. Now, large companies tend to get it, and many have well-publicized diversity and inclusion policies and internal networks, regular events, although many of these still are rather lacking about their understanding of the transgender situation. So there's a lot of work still to do there. However, the vast majority of small to medium enterprises, so SMEs, basically they show no visible acceptance at all of diversity, even though they very probably are accepting. They just haven't found a way to visibly show this. And this is a problem because SMEs account for 99.9% of UK companies, and they employ 60% of the UK workforce. And when you think that 62% of graduates that come out of university go straight back into the closet, I kind of think those statistics are probably linked. So in addition to my day jobs, I also have a number of gay jobs. I'm the first transgender co-chair of the LGBTQ Women's Network, so that's GWN. You can see a link to them on the slide there. They are a network of about 1,500 professional LGBT women in London. I'm also on the Tech London Advocates LGBTQ committee, and also founder and co-chair of Pride in Business. Now, Pride in Business provides free support and resources to the SME business sector to enable them to be visibly more welcoming and supportive to the LGBT community. Now, it's completely free of charge for businesses to get involved. To do so, if they visit the Pride in Business website, you'll see there is a 4-point code of conduct there, which is just 4 statements that businesses tend to want to support. And those interested businesses can then fill up the form free of charge on the website, and they get sent the Pride in Business logo in a few different formats, so they can actually just display that on their own website, so that when a potential member of staff is looking at their website ahead of interviews and things like that, somewhere prominent on the website, either on the home page or the Contact Us page, they'll see a very subtle Pride in Business logo. That if there's also a click through to the Pride in Business website, where that visitor can see what Pride in Business is about. And it's just a very subtle professional way for small businesses just to show that we are accepting and embracing of diversity, and we want people just to be who they are. So that's a very nice, easy way for people to get involved. We hope that this will encourage people to be more confident, feel more accepted, and feel less need to hide who they are and not go back into the closet again. I also run a number of sessions and workshops for larger companies to help them better understand the transgender workplace challenges and how they can provide greater support to their workforces. So if anybody would like to get in touch, you can see my contact details there. You can also scan that QR code that will take you through to a page where you can just leave your details to get in touch with me. I'm very open about, I know that if I wasn't transgender and if it was happening to somebody else, I know that I'd have hundreds and hundreds of questions, most of which I would not dare to ask due to fear of being inappropriate or causing offence. But I kind of see my situation at the moment as I'm very open about my situation, and I want the world and people to be more accepting to trans people and understand a bit more about who we are and the fact that we are just normal people. And people, I think, will only gain that acceptance and understanding once they have their questions answered. So therefore, if anybody wants to get in touch, has any questions, or wants to check out any of these organisations that I have put there, please do feel free to get in touch. Okay, many thanks.